Royal greetings. So yours truly here. It has been a bit of there has been rainfall earlier in this rise, magnificent works of the Most High. You know, we must continue to be grateful. And as we know, there's a lot going on. We have 3 ships out there in the waters. We've had business with ExxonMobil. We've had, you know, beings who are, you know, probably panicking a little bit because they're wondering if we would be in the middle of a war or something like that of the sort. And I say to you, my fellow beings, right here on the landmass of Erie or Kairi, which is Trinidad and Alubera, Tobago, that have no fear. The Royal Heir is right here. The Royal Heir, and I'm referring to Royal Heir because truthfully, Queen Elizabeth, Swarthy Elizabeth, I'm referring to Swarthy. Swarthy or tawny refers to the dark or even a tan colored shade being, referring to, you know, the copper shade, that kind of orangish hue, copper, golden kind of radiation. When the sunlight hits us, we just glow. Right, this is who she is. She is truthfully, and all right, it has been transformed into someone else. She, as well as Queen Charlotte, as well as even they have, you know, changed the whole complexion coding in paintings. However, the true Queen Elizabeth, as well as Anne Boleyn, you know, Swarthy beings coming directly from the Moorish people, as in who I refer to as myself, you know, from the Timucuan Indians ancestry and roots. It is who we are. And when I refer to Queen Elizabeth as well as Queen Charlotte and even Queen Victoria not being the beings who even colonized here, I'm speaking truthfully, because Queen Elizabeth, what she has done over the years is protect my allodial title, and I refer to it as my allodial title because it is something that is always there as a security, seeing that my roots is as early before the mud flood of Tartaria, before the great flood that occurred. You know, when they have it in the books known as the Bible, where a flood came and washed away this and that. It was the flood, and they were speaking about Tartaria. Okay, Tartaria. So in where Tartaria has been, my lineage, you know, from my mothers as well as, you know, who would have been my forefathers as well, we have always been the royal goddesses and gods of the realms and the space and the actual rightful heir and royals of planet Earth. So there are treaties way beyond a corporate government state entity body, all right? So they are only here, but I've been here like centuries ago, all right? Centuries ago I've been here, all right? So, and I am still here as the living being. So everything I share in the form of my allodial identity, my living identity, is to let fellow beings not only in corporate government spaces, but also in business places around, and even in my community and environment. It is so that you are aware of who I am, all right? So that we are on the same level of comprehension and understanding, so that you do not misclassify me or you do not identify me incorrectly or even address me incorrectly moving ahead. All right, so and when a being refuses to just, you know, really pay attention to what is being mentioned or what I'm saying, it blatantly shows me that you choose to be ignorant more so than to actually, you know, zoom into what is being mentioned, really connect the dots and see whether or not it makes sense. All right, so I do not have to lie. I do not have the fiat to just, you know, play around and fool around with, or to be a pest or a nuisance to any being, when what I could do in truth is really operate in my living identity as who I am, riparian rights as well as allodial title owner, land, air, water, space, laws. Okay, so in my operations here, there are beings who are even thinking that, you know, she might get locked up, you know, she'll be arrested, she's trespassing. It is none of the above, my lovings. All right, so this is why we are here at the Trinity Royal University of Higher Learning, in addition to also being here in the first Indigenous International Court of justice, all right, the Supreme Court of Justice, because these are things that have got to the point where if we do not install it for our protection, as I am the queen, I am empress, I am goddess, I am queen, I'm chief of the indigenous empire, indigenous nations, as well as indigenous tribes collectively, okay, out of Tartaria, and as well Tamerica, all right, which includes all of us here in the Americas, all right, the kingdoms of Ophir. So it's all placed on all land masses, spaces on earth, as my blueprint is on the ocean, the water. So I hold that riparian right. It has been divinely given to me. You know, my first runway appearance has been at my cathedral, Holy Trinity Cathedral. All right. So whilst walking on this red plank, it's like, you know, it's like Moses parting the Red Sea, the ocean. Okay, and that imprint has been placed divinely to show fellow beings that I am not just Queen of Queens, but also Lord of Lords, as my roots and ancestry speaks on. Rainbow have always been the bold counselors as well as the lords of the spaces and the royals. Okay, we have also always been the lords of the lands, all right? Aside from Rainbow, we have Simmons, we have Bathsheba Solomon that has been here ages of years, all right, before Jesus Christ, okay, before Christopher Columbus, before any other being who has been as Marcus Garvey, who would have been as Gaddafi, who would have been as Hitler, who would have been in other revolutionary time frames and loops. I am before these beings, okay, as how, you know, far I could take you through the journey. It is as deep rooted as the depths and even more of what ExxonMobil has been given, you know, privilege to do business with over here. All right, so regarding that issue with ExxonMobil as well too, I am the riparian rights owner. It is my waters, my water space. So to the respectful beings in the corporate government states, yes, I understand that you would do things, you know, that you see fit to govern a country, a nation, and the people. However, there are primordial and tribal law jurisdiction that must be respected and honored. And it's not to ignore or anything of the sort when we realize that there's conversations about certain things. So for the ignorant minds, from what I've observed over the years whilst watching documentaries of what they would have put out as in a history, I've seen where there is a bit of, you know, loss of memory that occurs. I don't know if it's a kind of like thing that is passed on genetically, but when I speak of loss of memory, it's as if, you know, we are quick to forget certain things, all right? So it is to really tap into a consciousness and be able to remember that which is truth. So not every being that lives or reside here on Trinidad and Tobago, which is Kairi and Alubera, or Iere, which is Trinidad, came from any slave trade or have been in a slave trade. This is the truth, and I will let you know that. So the misclassifications of beings or anything that is mentioned from 12th century up to 2025 now is not sufficient enough, since it excludes the indigenous peoples, the primordials. It excludes the originals of the land masses, all right? And then you continue with a story that is just as in right there the other day, okay? And then you'll see a monument. Well, they took it down already with Christopher Columbus. Why do we have these things? All right? So we're restoring the truth to the rightful heir, which is who I am. And we have 3 ships as in the security, protecting my assets as well too. Okay? So it's not no war, it's not any war against any being to say, well, you know, it will get real sticky and violent, and we'll have to be running and screaming for our lives. No, none of the above. We are protecting our resources, okay? And when it comes to the primordial indigenous beings, especially who I am, and identifying myself, it is for us to actually, you know, respectfully pay attention and realize the truth. All right. So much love. Much love.